Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Forward United podcast. Today we have the one and only Heidi. You might know her as Yang Vets on Twitter. So Heidi, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Hi, everybody. I'm sure a lot of you kind of know who I am. I'm Heidi. I am one of the co-founders of Veterans for Yang / Veterans for Humanity, which is kind of what we kind of go by Veterans for Humanity, but we were Andrew Yang's veterans group. I kind of got really involved in the Yang gang and the Yang campaign when I decided to take a semester off from college and put these giant Yang 2020 decals on my Jeep and head to Iowa to tell Iowans about Andrew Yang. So, I think a lot of people already know my story, but yeah, so I'm a veteran. I spent 15 years in tech, and then I was going back to school for history, minoring in religion, and wanting to eventually get my master's of divinity. And I left all that behind to go campaign for Andrew Yang. So
That's awesome. Yeah, Veterans for Yang, that's one of the original Yang groups, right? I mean, that's a lot of groups started popping up after that, but that's one of the original ones. That's awesome. So you left school to go work on the Yang campaign. I mean, any regrets? I mean,
no.
no. I mean, I imagine you got probably more than you would have gotten at a semester of school, right? I mean,
Well, okay, so it was actually the school had messed up my financial aid. So I was forced to take the fall off, but
ah,
they figured it out in October and then wanted me to re-register for the spring semester, and I was like, no, at that point I'd been driving all over Iowa for a month. But so yeah, I because I had the fall semester off, I decided to, do this, and then I took the spring semester off. And the thing is you can always go back to college,
yeah,
what I was, or what I was doing for the campaign is that's a once, it's a once in a
yeah.
lifetime thing. So no regrets. I mean, I have regrets about, how, things that we did in the campaign. Obviously Andrew lost, but as for taking, the time off from school and like putting my life on hold, I have no regrets about that.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, if your school kind of messing up on financial aid led to you going down there and spending time there, I think you were meant to be there personally.
Yeah.
And
I agree.
I mean, on the election side of it, coming out of a campaign I personally lost myself. Um, I mean, that's just a whole thing. A lot of it you just have to learn from experience and then take it to the next one and do better next time. So I have no doubt that Andrew's gonna do better next time. And I mean, just the progress from, if you look at like a year ago to now, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's crazy. So before Andrew Yang, like over a year ago, like were you politically engaged in the past? Or were you just kind of just like you kind of shut down the tech, you just kind of shut down the political side of it too?
I was politically engaged.
Okay.
I was a hardcore Bernie Sanders supporter.
That's right.
Yes, yes.
That's right.
And the 4 years I spent as a burner were, they weren't my best years.
Right.
So, like discovering Andrew and his platform was just like probably one of the best things that has happened because as a burner I just became so like disillusioned and so like angry, and after what happened in 2016, and Bernie being basically robbed and then feeling like the political process was a joke and rigged. I just became like a lot of his supporters, I became very angry.
Yeah.
And I was one of those people that was calling for a revolution.
Yeah.
So when I found Andrew, it was life changing. So yeah.
Yeah. The mentality of the Bernie campaign versus Andrews. I mean, it's night and day. And the thing is, the crazy thing is, like, we're finding out within literally like the last week, because Bernie's campaign looked super organized, super focused. Looked like they're hitting all the right marks, and then within seemed like a couple days,
Yeah.
like it completely went the other way. Like it was almost like the DNC was just waiting for the right time to pull the trigger on Biden, and not, so he wouldn't have enough time to fuck it up. You know what I mean? Like, all right, Super Tuesday. And that's something I feel like, again, coming from just like, I'm a huge Andrew Yang supporter, and coming off of a campaign myself, I'm sitting here like, okay, the DNC, the establishment, is no joke. This will probably be the second cycle in a row that they've stolen something from Bernie. So moving forward, how do we build something that is not susceptible to the same thing? Because again, a couple days from Super Tuesday, like 2 or 3 days from Super Tuesday, you think Bernie has it in the bag.
Yeah, we did.
And then
Absolutely, we thought Bernie was going to run away with it. I think, though, like, for me, I've always said that we needed to follow the Bernie playbook for our own movement, and seeing all of this, I'm actually kind of thinking it's probably not a great idea
exactly.
to follow the Bernie. The thing is and one point that I keep hearing a lot, which makes a lot of sense, we can be very angry at the DNC and think that it's rigged and whatever, but you also have to think about the fact that when you say that, you're saying like the thousands of like African American voters that came out in South Carolina are a part of the establishment, and they're trying to help, rig the election against Bernie. That when you think about it like that, because it literally is votes. It
Yeah.
is it is literal votes that Biden's leading in, that were cast by, the Democratic Party is primarily like, it is like the heart of the Democratic Party is African Americans. And so upon scrutiny, when you actually think about it, it's hard to go with the rigging narrative without without dismissing like people coming out and overwhelmingly voting, right?
Yeah.
So to me, there's a lot of lessons that we can learn. And I think one of the major ones is that you cannot have a movement that is angry and almost exclusionary,
Yeah.
unless you're willing to really like pay a penance almost to be a part of it,
It's true. I mean, because I feel like a lot of Yang supporters, I mean, if you look at Biden versus Bernie,
Yeah.
Bernie's policies probably line up with Yang's closer than Biden's, because Biden doesn't really have policies, but
Yeah.
just the general like attitude of Bernie followers, I think, is what has pushed us away. Because if you just looked at it, like, we should be more appealed to Bernie, but I'm just not. Like, I'm really
Yeah,
not.
I'm not either. And that's 70% of America, or
Right.
70% of Democrats. So you can gaslight us all into thinking, like that we're all just imagining that that we were treated this way and that all of these things happen. Or you can face the fact that somebody said it today, that when when making your case about something, it's better to make a case for like a practical solution versus a moral argument,
Right.
because trying to trying to ask people to, or in this case, browbeat people into like changing their morals is really
Right.
it's not gonna. And this was in what they were actually talking about was the UBI arguments. There's a lot of people that have been in the UBI movement that don't really like how Andrew kind of lotteried UBI, how he made it sound like he was giving away money, and they're like, it should be more about that it's a human right. And while I agree with that argument, I feel like the ideological arguments from like a moral perspective are just harder to kind of
Swallow.
yeah, and
Digest.
then
Yeah.
you literally have to browbeat people with it. And that's kind of what the burners have been doing, is they're just like beating us all up with their superior morality. When the fact of the matter is, none of us want people to die due to lack of health care. And it's acting like we're elitist assholes who don't care about poor people. I filed medical bankruptcy almost 10 years ago when my son was in kindergarten. He got H1N1, which is kind
Yeah.
of, the similar situation right now. He got H1N1 and he ended up hospitalized. And we had literally just moved to where we were living, and we didn't have insurance yet with my ex-husband's job. And it hadn't kicked in because, like, literally we moved there and he got deathly sick. And he spent 10 days in the hospital. His doctor was trying to treat him at home because he knew our insurance wasn't, we didn't have insurance yet. And he almost died for the doctor trying to save us money by
Right.
not treating my son inpatient. And he developed pneumonia and he almost died. So I know the arguments for, Medicare for all. I know the arguments for not having, like, people shouldn't have to file medical bankruptcy, because I did, So it's a terrible argument to try and say that you are the only person that cares about these things, and that you must guilt and browbeat and gaslight other people into,
Right.
you're not the only one who cares about it. Literally, there's not a Democrat that isn't running on these things,
Yeah, and I completely agree, and it's something where I'm trying to reflect on in real time, just
Yeah.
because the like Biden, okay, but before Biden won South Carolina,
Hmm.
he wasn't even like an option in my brain. Then all of a sudden he
Yeah.
wins South Carolina, you're just like, ooh, Biden. But I don't know why I was thinking that.
Yeah.
But then, yeah, when you reflect on the way Bernie supporters are really going after, it's like saying that it's for moral reasons when also threatening that you're going to riot if you don't get what you want. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like
Yeah.
it's okay if you were actually cared about, morality and things like that, you wouldn't
Yeah.
be threatening to riot and burn the place down if you don't win. So
It's a very hypocritical stance that you say, hey, I'm here because I care about poor people having health care, and I care about poor people dying because they can't get health care. And then you're saying, but I'm going to burn everything down. Who do you think has to stick around for your revolution? You don't even have to stick around for your revolution. You can light the fire and leave. Most of these
it's
people,
true.
they can, like, and who has to stick around for it? The people that, it's kind of like with the abortion argument. Like, you can outlaw abortion, and rich women are still gonna, they're still
Yeah.
gonna get them if they
Yep.
want them. It's women, it's poor women that are gonna, they're the ones that are gonna suffer from these laws. So you say that you care about, poor people having health care, and then you're like, but if we don't get this, we're gonna like subject them to violence and
Yeah.
revolution they probably don't even want,
Yeah, and
So
that
it's
could be
very
another
hypocritical.
yeah, that could be another reason that people aren't turning out for Bernie, because if you have
Yeah.
Bernie and his supporters going up against Trump and his supporters in the general election, that's pretty much a riot. I mean, just riots at every rally and everything. You know what I mean? So that might be another reason. But yeah, I completely agree that moving forward, we need to do a different plan. We need to, can't follow the Bernie playbook, because up to this point, it has seemed and it has appeared like it's effective,
Yeah.
but now it's crumbling and it's falling apart. So what would you propose as the way forward if it's not the Bernie playbook?
Well, I think that there are still things that we can take from the Bernie playbook. Like they really they were very good at organizing. The turnout was disappointing. I mean, we were supposed to have like all of the youth turn out, and
Right.
that really didn't happen. So that also makes me question the organizing as well. It's kind of I think that a movement that is based on real hope and, you know, that is inclusive, that isn't tied into like identity and people having to hate themselves or deny who they are as a person. I think a very inclusive movement that just welcomes people is what we need to be. So I'm someone that's like I've been very frustrated by like the Bernie crowd and how they're just like to me they're just so abusive, you know?
Right.
But I want to be like more forgiving, like understanding where they're coming from because like they have identified problems. Just like, like Andrew likes to say about Donald Trump. Donald Trump identified problems. He just didn't have solutions. And I think that the Bernie Sanders supporters are in that kind of same vein where the things that they are angry about are legitimate. I know I was a burner for 4 years, but I just think that a movement that is based on hate and anger and I just don't think that it's a winning strategy. And I'm not even so much concerned about winning as I am about helping.
Right.
So
Yeah, and
yeah,
it's just to give people context too. We're talking about this the week after Super Tuesday, so Biden and Bernie are still in it. Elizabeth Warren just dropped out, so we're trying to reflect on these things kind of in real time, like without too much time to process
yeah,
exactly what's going on. Like in another week or two, people will have a lot, even more insight. So we're trying to process it in real time. But I completely agree that the anger side of it won't make an impact. And I don't think Yang Gang and Humanity Forward First and everything that's been building is any anger or anything like that anyways. um it's the issue is like they get a lot of publicity for their anger, so we need to get just as much, if not more, publicity with doing it the right way, which I
yeah,
think is the challenge, right? That's why we
yeah,
need more people, creating content, speaking up, putting your face out there, also running for office. Again, if
absolutely.
anybody's running for, like, thinking about it, do it. I just ran and I lost, but I got like 2,600 votes. We spread the message, and the most important thing is we learned a lot to take into next time. If not for me, then everybody else running. So we just need more people out there involved in doing stuff. So
Absolutely. We need these ideals out there. So I'm super proud of you for running.
thank you.
And there's a first time for everything. Like you said, you and Andrew are in the same boat right now.
Yeah,
And we all still think Andrew is a hero and so are you. So
I appreciate it. And Andrew has a clear path to victory, I think, in the next cycle. This area for me is a little too
Republican from what I
Republican. If
saw.
I was
Yeah.
running as a Democrat. So there's that. That's what I'm saying, though. I could take all this and help other people run too if there's not a clear path for me, because I don't want too much time and resources going into something if I don't have a clear path to win right away.
Yeah.
And it's not forever. You know what I mean? Like, I'm 31, so I
Oh
have
wow,
more than
you're a
enough time.
baby.
I know. So I have more than enough time to figure that out. But my whole goal right here, right now, is to support Andrew, support UBI, and everybody that supports him. So
Absolutely.
it's I think we're going the right direction. We've gotten some time to recover after he dropped out. And then same thing with me. Like I've had a few days to recover after losing on my side. And again, I don't have any regrets about doing it. There are things I could have adjusted but I wouldn't know these things until after I do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like hindsight's 2020.
That's very true. Yeah.
And that was, yeah, exactly. And that's one of the things like why I wanted to do it, because there's certain things you can't learn until you actually go through it. So
yeah, going through it is and until you go through it, everything is like it always bothered me. Like we had a lot of like armchair politicos in the Yang gang, and so now they feel kind of justified or validated. When Andrew lost, like he should have listened to them, and you know I
that's
mean,
just,
maybe in hindsight, but
yeah,
it's also possible, like, there's a lot of people that have worked on campaigns before and were always telling us how we were doing things wrong. But there's also the fact that had Andrew been running a traditional campaign from the get-go, he might have never gotten where he
no,
was, right?
nope, I
He
don't think
he
so.
could have been like a Michael Bennett or something, just never launching. So the history is written by the winners, and hindsight is 2020, and all you can do is take as much of as m- and you can't even trust that having done something differently would have affected something, so it's all just kind of like
Well, no, the people there's always people that say, "Oh, I told you so. See,
oh,
you
we get a
didn't
lot of that.
succeed."
Yeah,
And those aren't people that have actual any knowledge. They're just, people that are scared to go out there and do something themselves.
yeah,
And then they tell everybody like, "Haha, see, you shouldn't have tried." And obviously, I have that opinion from people in my personal life in the past that are scared to try. So, and no, I don't think if he ran his campaign like a typical campaign, I don't think he would have gotten anywhere.
yeah,
Um, and even more so in the future, it needs to probably look even less like a regular campaign.
yeah.
That's why I'm super excited about what he's doing right now. Like he's on CNN. He just announced the Moving Humanity Forward, his organization. And I mean, he and his wife have agents now, that are going to work to put their face out there. Like, I think that's so smart on every level.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
so I'm definitely excited the way it's going. So, some of the questions we usually go through here. Let me ask you a couple. On a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate the treatment of people in our society today?
That's an interesting question. By who?
Treatment by just society in general, just not because that's a point that usually comes up is like, because you and me, you and I try to treat people fairly well, but as a society as a whole, like how are we treating individuals versus, like, let's say corporations?
We're definitely at like a 2.
Right.
Um, that's one of the main things that attracted me to Andrew's campaign was that and we've accepted this treatment. We've like internalized that we should be a 2.
Yeah.
Like we apologize for being human. Like we go to work sick because we don't want to like be a burden on our boss or whoever we work for. We will put our kids second. I don't know if you have kids.
Yeah, I have 2 kids, 3 and 5. Yep.
Okay. A lot of times we'll put our kids second
Yeah.
because our employer or what, life requires that we act like we don't have kids.
Right.
We act like we aren't human beings. So human beings in our society rate lower than basically anything.
Yeah, it's crazy, right? And this is why I feel like more of Yang Gang, just people that, humanity first people need to be having these conversations, because a lot of people haven't even, they think it's just them in their personal life. You know what I mean? Like they think they don't know that it's a widespread issue. That's one of
Mhm.
the things that actually attracted me to Andrew so much when I was listening to the Joe Rogan podcast, because I heard before that, how he wants to give everybody $1,000 a month and things like that, which I didn't really dig into UBI, but when he was talking about how um, you know depression and anxiety are so high, people really aren't put first, and just like you said, like we feel like um, we have to put these things before our family and before ourselves
Yeah.
to feel like we're doing a good job. You know what I mean? Like it's not a good place for people to have to be in, and yet
No.
most people think that it's just a personal issue, like because they look at social media and everything, and everybody else is all happy and stuff. When in reality, people are just putting like their highlight reel on social media, and they're also struggling with a lot of the same things. And
Exactly.
again, these just aren't things that people are talking about. You know what I mean? Like I understand the
Well,
other campaigns are wanting to say, "Hey, we're all moral and everything," but they're also not talking about this stuff. Go ahead.
yeah, and one thing society has done that's, or at least our is that it's successfully like gaslighted us all into thinking it's all of our fault. That every problem that we have, like our mental health, everything is our own fault. It's our
Right.
own, everything is a personal failing. It's like I was raised Catholic, and it's like that Catholic guilt just like en masse, right? Like we take everything as like a personal failing. So because it's a personal failing, we have to suck it up. We have to pretend that it's not happening. We have to pretend that everything's great, or else like it's a personal failing. It's us. People will see that we're fucked up. But like that's kind of what I really liked about Andrew, and also like kind of with the ties to automation, because the
Right.
fact is it doesn't matter if you are the absolute best human, the best employee, the hardest worker, or the shittiest. You will be replaced just the same, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's the thing, and it's so relevant. Like everything we're talking about, I mean, just people's self worth, and then you go on top of that and say, hey, on top of all these things that have been kind of ingrained into us over time, on top of it, now we're going to have you compete with
The
a
machine.
machine that does
Yeah.
everything perfect every single time
Yes.
for way less money.
Yep.
So when you pair those two together, then yeah, you're going to have people that are super depressed and super anxious, and suicide is going to be at an all-time high. And but the thing is, people aren't talking about it, which is crazy, because in the Yang Gang, these are all like things that are just like super common facts,
Yeah.
right? But you go outside of our group, and it's like nobody talks about this. I don't know if it's just uncomfortable
Yeah.
for them, or they just don't know. You know what I mean? And that's why, like, we need to grow the movement so much. Yes, long term to have Andrew win, but because so many people are struggling right now, and honestly, everything we're talking about would help people tremendously, right?
Absolutely.
Like how many people were politically disengaged before they heard all this, and then all of a sudden they're just like the super most active people. I mean, that's kind of one of the
Yeah.
things that happened to me. Like I was just like, how in the hell am I, like, can I never get ahead? You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Like never get ahead no matter what we do. Like it's always something. And then you listen to him and it's just like, oh shit,
Yeah.
maybe it's not just me.
Well, no, and the fact is like what I was saying about the automation, like the machine will replace you, good employee or not good employee, but also the economic times you live in. Like during the Great Depression, we lost whole generations of people, hard workers and shitty workers alike. You know, it's not always so personal. It's not always like just pull yourself up by the by your bootstraps. Who in the great during the Great Depression could pull themselves up by their bootstraps? Nobody. Like
Yeah.
if we'd have had, like, can you think, or just think of like how many Steve Jobs or Bill Gates or whatever that we lost just because of the Great Depression. I mean, or you go to Africa and how many brilliant people will never make it, like, out of Africa just because of the economic conditions there. So we internalize so much, right? It's that we're not working hard enough. We're flawed. We're fucked up. It's us. When in reality, if you look at it like on a grand scale, just look at history. You'll lose so many people, and when they were alive and when they were going through it, they probably thought, I'm a failure, I'm a fuck up, right? But history shows, like, literally Great
Yeah.
Depression. We lost all these people. Um, Good and bad, hardworking, not hardworking, to the literal economic downturn, right?
Right. And I
Yeah.
mean, it can happen again very easily. Right now,
And
there's just,
we might be in it right now. I
well,
mean, we may be heading for this. Not saying. I mean, we are in like a terrible economic time right now. That wages are stagnant. You cannot, it used to be, if you got a college degree was cheap, but also if you got a college degree, you were guaranteed a good job and a good
right.
life. And all of that stuff is gone now. So literally history is going to look at our time. They're going to be like, look at these people. Like, they owed, money for a degree that was worthless, or they didn't even finish their degree and still owe like $200,000. They weren't making any money. And so can you see it, like how history books are going to write about us? But meanwhile, we are in this moment hating ourselves and wondering what the
Right.
fuck we did wrong, and being depressed and trying to hide it because, if we just keep our heads down and work, it'll pass.
Yeah. And
So
that's,
it'll be interesting. Like, we won't be here to see what the history books write about us, but it's
yeah,
probably going to be something similar to the Great Depression.
seriously. And this is during a time, well, not right now, a week ago, when the stock market's at an all time high,
Yeah.
companies are profiting more than ever. And imagine if that piece of it stopped. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like, we're already dealing with stuff without that happening. And that's part of, sorry, my daughter was at the door. I'll cut that part out. Um,
You're fine.
and this is what we're talking about is one reason why I feel like I get a little too passionate about what we're trying to do,
Yeah.
because it's not a game. And this is my frustration a lot, because everything we're talking about, like, there's people legitimately struggling out there, and the only way they're going to pull out of whatever they're dealing with is if we can reach more people.
Yeah.
And if we're not reaching more people and our time and resources are going to things that aren't productive, and people are treating it like a game, then I get frustrated. So I'm sure people have seen me at times do, like, get a little too passionate. And that's why, like, I legitimately myself was in a place where I did not understand why the hell I couldn't, get ahead.
Yeah.
And I was internalizing it. Technically, I'm still in that area, because, like, I had going into this election, I was doing my solar business type thing, and I had a second job. I left the second job, and I slowed down my solar business. So after this election, I'm kind of in the same place, but I understand it a lot more. You know what I mean? Where it's just like, okay, there's not too many jobs, but now at least I know why. It's not me just running around like, why can't I get a job? And that's why I feel like so many people are trying to build on this movement, because
Yeah.
it can literally, like, you could be in the same situation, but you're not blaming yourself, and you see a way forward that can actually improve the situation, versus blaming yourself and not seeing any way out of it.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. So that goes to our next question. So what is something that you would consider a major problem in our society?
I think probably the biggest, like, the idea, and it's something that we all know, but until someone speaks it, we don't actually, somebody has to say it for you to be like, "Oh, that's right." Um, and it was literally Andrew Yang who spoke it, and he said, "We have confused economic value with human value." And everything you ever read, everything we ever, like, talk about is to that, like, end. Um, it is so internalized that I think that it's what leads to a lot of, like, mental health, like, the huge, mental health problems. Like, when, I understand, like, the burner's passion towards, like, you know, just killing capitalism. But what they don't realize is that socialism, like the socialism they want, even democratic socialism, is still based on the idea that your labor is like an economic input or whatever.
Right.
It's still based on that idea that your value is in being a wage slave, you know? Um, So I think, they want the right things. Obviously, we all want healthcare for everyone, but, like, once you get that, and once you get free college, and once you get all of these things, you're still not going to be happy, right?
Yeah.
Because it's still based on the idea that your value is in being a warm body for to turn on a machine, to dig a ditch, to, whatever. Like, that is still going to be a problem whether you go full capitalist and or full socialist, is we still have that existential desire to feel like our life isn't just that, you know?
And I think that's one of the like my major frustration is just how rigid they are with like the federal jobs guarantee.
Yeah.
Like that literally will create more of an issue than a solution. Like if people, first of all, we're not going to have enough meaningful things for this many people to do. Like
Exactly. A
you,
friend said that she wanted to be like a librarian as her federal job, and I was just like,
how many libraries and
it's not
librarians
gonna
are there?
it doesn't really value, um, when you head towards that kind of society, it's not really gonna value, librarians,
No,
you know?
like you'll be the porch sweeper of some random ass federal building, and
Exactly. You're not gonna get to
that's
be a
your
librarian.
life, 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, and you'll get a probably minimum wage job. And I don't know. First of all, like there's no reason to have people doing these jobs, and it's going to make people feel
Yeah,
even more meaningless. And
exactly.
like, how are you supposed to work your way up the ladder of a federal jobs guarantee job? Like, it's just, you know what I mean? And UBI, universal basic income, can make more of an impact for less. Because can you imagine how much it's going to cost to not only pay people for federal jobs guarantee, but pay to administrate it?
Administrator,
And
yeah, well,
you know,
yeah, what is, I think, the cost of, like, our welfare, system, they pay, or it costs us $3 for every dollar that they pay out because of bureaucracy.
right?
So and it's still not a huge part of our budget, but can you imagine a federal jobs guarantee? Um,
It'd be insane.
that would be a pretty big part of our budget, and if it holds to the $3 for every $1 paid to a federal, um, job holder.
Yeah, and
That's
that's that's if they would even get it in place. That's the other
yeah,
thing. Is like Joe Biden's appealing to people is because he's saying incremental change is better
mhm,
than plans that'll never get passed.
Yeah.
And people are looking at it like, yep, that actually makes sense because, I mean, Obama had what, a supermajority, and it took him 3 years to get
Yeah.
his healthcare plan passed. I mean, Bernie gets in there, and I don't think he'll have the Senate too. So he
Mm.
might have that just the House, and like that
He
with that.
might not have the House either, because what like with Bernie at the top of the ticket, some of these like House gains that we got in 2018 are like perilous.
Really,
So he may not have the House, or he may not have the Senate or even the House if and even still, even if he did, like if you look at the 2018 gains that we made that like took the House back, they
right?
were moderates.
Yeah,
So other than AOC, his whole plan to like flip Congress into like these progressives didn't happen. It was literally just AOC. So it's not like he's got a coalition that will go along with,
yeah.
So yeah.
That's I mean that's another thing we need to put into our game plan, right? Because if we're looking to get more UBI candidates in office, and on the ballots, the brand new Congress, what do they have, like 400 different candidates, and AOC was the only one that got elected?
No, they because I was a part of it. They started out intending to run 400 people to just basically flip Congress, and then
Right.
they ended up only managing to get like a couple dozen, and
Okay.
then AOC was the only one. So it was a total. That's an idea we definitely, and that's why I say like we shouldn't focus like so largely, like
Yeah.
that we should focus on, because we didn't create the movement. Obviously, this race there was too many people in it.
Yeah.
In 2016, it was Bernie and Hillary. So, he was literally able to create this large movement. We didn't do that. We don't have the bottomless piles of money. It's weird to say about Bernie, but he does.
Yeah.
We don't have all that money. So we need to be we have to be a lot smarter. We have to be just, and I honestly, I trust Andrew to, I've spent a lot of time with Andrew. I trust him to um, be able to use the math to kind of narrow these things down a little bit for us, but we can't, and that's just one way that we can't follow the Bernie playbook, and it didn't work for them anyway, and we don't have the money to do that, even if it did. So
Yeah, I think he's doing it smart already. I mean, CNN, okay, he's getting paid for name exposure. You know what I mean? And then with the organization, I mean, the organization's going to be able to do so much, and then just go from there. So, like I said, I'm still following his lead on everything, and I haven't interacted with him as much as you, but the couple times, yeah, I completely trust whatever his judgment is and everything going from here. So, but yeah, I agree that one of the main problems is confusing economic value with human value, and again, that's just something that people just don't talk about. It's
yeah.
something that if we're not talking about it, we're not bringing it up in conversations, then people
No,
just
like people, like, think about it, the Sunday dread, right?
yeah.
That everybody on a Sunday, like that, it settles into the pit of your stomach, right? Because you have to
Uh-huh.
go to work on Monday.
Yep.
Everybody lives for the weekend, right? Uh, so we already know it takes, you know it like deep down inside that this is not how things are supposed to be. And sometimes it literally takes hearing someone say it. And that's how it was for me. I've beat myself up over the years for not, being I am a smart person. I should be able to like conquer these things in my life that I haven't been able to. And I've beat myself up over it. And I look back, like, is it even worth it? Like the amount of stress that you, one, take on yourself, and two, like I'm a mom, you know, like I bring that stress and that angst and that, you know, that home to
Yeah.
my kid, you know? And you look back and it's just like, why? You
Yeah.
know, it's
Yeah. Now, but imagine how many million, like literally, probably millions of people are still in that mindset, though.
yeah. Yeah.
You-
Well, and I'll fall back into it. We all
Well, I
do.
know exactly, but again, I mean, having heard these things, it's a little easier to deal with them versus like millions of people are sitting there just still blaming themselves. They're just like, okay, even when you're doing well, you're just like, oh shit, I didn't think like when you're in a good job, quote unquote, you still think like, okay, well, this is what I was working towards. Like this isn't even that great because you're just a slave to, when I was working in management and things like that, like I was making good money, but I was also working like 60 hours a week and completely
Yeah,
stressed out, having to be on call all day, every day. And it's just like, okay, well, was this really what I was working up to? Like, this isn't that great. Like, so yeah, there needs to be a big paradigm shift and we need to get more people exposed to everything we're talking about. And
Mhm.
I think that's the game plan now is just growth, right? Um, but I think we're making progress.
Absolutely. And I, like, a lot of people are mad about Andrew being on CNN. I
Why?
am not. You know, I'm not a hipster. I don't want to keep this movement small and
Right.
pure.
Like,
I want Andrew on CNN so people can see that he's a rational, intelligent human being, so they can trust him and trust his ideas. So I'm totally, totally on board with, you know, with that. So
yeah, like I saw it, I was like, huh, genius. Because I mean, look at the past two debates. Like he wasn't in the last couple debates. Was it a couple
yeah.
debates or at least the last one? But
Mhm.
on CNN, he got way more talking time than he would have gotten in the actual debate, and he's
Right.
getting paid for it. And he
Yeah,
doesn't have people
exactly.
cutting him off. Like that's the thing. People are just sitting back judging, like, oh, I don't want him to be a commentator. Like, obviously, it's not the only thing he's going to do. Like he
Yeah.
could do this, he could do a lot of other things. Like just if again, coming from someone that was in a election when he decided to do that, I was like, that's genius. If I had any chance to do that, I would absolutely do it because it would help your election so much. Like it's so much
Yeah.
name recognition.
If you think about it, like Donald Trump wouldn't have been able to
Hell no.
get where
Not
he is if he hadn't been on our TVs for the last 10 years as a
exactly.
reality TV star.
Yeah, run around in
Yeah.
Home Alone and shit. Like
He
that's
got
one
him out of it. Did you see that in
in
Canada?
Canada. Yeah, I love
Yes.
that.
Like, wow.
And it
Okay.
actually pissed him off. It's great.
That's
um,
a great troll move. Yeah.
I know. So smart. Damn Canadians. No, and that's CNN. Go on CNN. That's why I just saw when he got an agent. Like hell yeah, get an agent for you and your wife.
Absolutely.
Go do whatever you can. Go
Yeah.
cameo and everything and anything. Like I don't care. Just do it.
Make your become a household name. Make your
Yeah.
and Andrew, to me, just from what I've, you know, just the time I've spent with him, I don't think that he's someone that's trying to make a name for himself, make his riches and like forget where he, you know, where he came from.
Right.
Um I just don't think that's who he is as a person, but I do think that he is going to do what he needs to do to accomplish the mission, and it may not necessarily even be uh, president. You know, like in 2024, it could be a whole different ball game depending on how 2020 goes, and
Yeah.
obviously how the next 4 years goes. So it's kind of limiting to only focus on, you know, the presidency.
Right.
There's just so many ways that he can get his message out there, that he can normalize it, that he can, you know, talk to people about it. And you know, I fully support it, and I'm pretty happy with the things that I mean, obviously I didn't want him to drop out, and I do have like my fantasies about 2024.
Right.
But I think that there's more than one way, or as I said on my YouTube channel yesterday, there's more than one way to skin a cat. And then
Exactly.
somebody, I'm from South Louisiana. We just say
Are
stuff
you
like
from
that.
South Louisiana? You don't sound like you're from South Louisiana.
I worked in radio a
Really?
long time ago. Yeah,
I did not know
so
that.
I had to kind of lose my accent to, which was funny because the people that listened to me had like heavy, thick Cajun accents, so they would have understood anyway. But and then I joined the military when I was a teenager, and that was a long time ago. It was
Whatever.
20. I'm older than you. That was 20 years ago. So I've had time to kind of lose the accent. But when I go home, I start talking like a Cajun again.
Really?
So yeah. Yeah,
No,
it's embarrassing.
no, it's not embarrassing. We lived in Houston for a year, so
Oh
we checked
wow,
out.
so you're familiar.
Yeah, we checked out a little bit of Louisiana and that whole area. So I really liked
The
Texas and
food. Yeah,
yeah. Oh my God, the food is ridiculous. So, um,
absolutely.
yeah, I didn't know you were from down there. It's interesting.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, that's the thing. Like, it's people from everywhere, anywhere and everywhere, and that's why like we need to get everyone involved because it's not just for a certain demographic at all. Not
It's
for a certain
everybody.
age group. Like it's not for some. It appeals to literally. I think literally everyone. Like unless you are hardcore for a different political candidate, that's really the only time where I've seen like pushback.
Yeah.
Um, but if people are willing to have like an actual open discussion about these things, it you can literally watch their eyes light up when it
I
clicks.
know. That was
It's like,
my favorite thing about being part of the campaign and like being on the bus tour with Andrew. It was like I got to 5 times a day see people's eyes just light up, right?
yeah,
So it was pretty cool.
exactly. So we just need to multiply that by 1,000,
Yeah,
which
yeah. Yeah.
I think we
And
can
then
do.
yeah, and him being on CNN and building our movement and like their plans to fund UBIs with this new nonprofit. I think it's all great.
Yeah, that'll be a huge impact because that's one other thing I thought might be really good if like I thought he might be trying to run for mayor of New York. I was like, well, damn, if he figured out a way to get UBI in New York and
Yeah,
showed it as a really good case study, then it would blow up
yeah.
everywhere else. But also, I mean, they still said they're using like what a 500,000 for some small area in New York for a UBI.
Yeah, so they haven't picked yet, but they're gonna look for like a small town that they can like give it an economic boost. But they had initially like before launch raised like 3 million, and then in
Right.
the first 24 hours of launch raised another 3 million almost. So they're in a pretty good place right now for only having launched. So
Yeah, a couple days
only
ago.
things could change.
Or was that
Yeah,
yesterday? Is that
yeah,
literally
they launched
Jesus?
yesterday. Yeah.
Time, I don't know. Time moves really slow in an election. Well, whenever you find out that town, just give me a heads up so I could go to New York and live in that
And go
little town.
like
Hell yeah.
I literally want to be a part of whatever committee chooses who they give money to. I want to
Seriously.
be part of that. I told Zach, I was like, please put me on whatever board or what I need to be a part of so I could like give people money.
Seriously, I mean, that's what people should be excited about. Like, hey, let's help more people. You know what I mean? Like in
Exactly.
the government, not just like, hey, how do we pay ourselves more?
Yeah,
Or hey, how do we make sure our term limits never expire? You know what I mean? Like
exactly.
there's so much. That's why I mean, if we had really short term limits, like we would have people excited to go into office, do a good job, and then leave. Not
Exactly.
not just like, hey, I'm going to get in here, make as much money for myself, and then stay in here as long as possible, and not ruffle any feathers, so I could just stay in here forever. And
Yeah.
that's
Or once you do leave, going to work for the industries and making more
right.
money there.
Yeah, like we need more people that are excited to actually help people. Like that
Exactly.
should be
And that's how our forefathers intended it. We were supposed to have citizen legislators, not, as Andrew says, people that go to DC and squat for like their whole life. It's not not what was ever intended.
Exactly. And that's what we're going to change. And that's why we need more people running for office too.
Absolutely.
In places where it's viable. And that's a whole nother thing I'm working on. Is just like, all right, you want to run for office? Cool. Figure out how to do it and figure out the best way to actually succeed. Again, just from talking about my own personal campaign, it was just like, it takes a lot of money to win, period, let alone in an area where the numbers just don't line up. So we'll talk about that another time. So you started a YouTube channel a week ago, right?
Yes.
Where can people follow you? So on Twitter, you're Yang Vets, and on YouTube, how do they find you on YouTube?
I don't know.
That's a good question. Maybe go to her Twitter at Yang Vets and then find a link.
If you go to Andrew, well, this won't be like on YouTube for a couple days. I was gonna say if you go to Andrew's Twitter right now, you will see my YouTube because he retweeted a link to it about an hour ago.
Well, it'll take me a little longer to post.
I don't know how you find me on YouTube.
Okay, let's just say go to Yang Vets on Twitter and then find something on there, and we will figure out a way because I think you're past 100 subscribers, so you should be able to create your own username on YouTube. We'll figure that out.
I don't know.
It's all good. It's all good. So I don't know if you know this or not, but there's a lightning round.
Oh shit! No, I didn't.
Oh shit! Yep. Super hard questions. Some of them are algebra, some geometry.
I'm from Louisiana. Don't ask me any math.
Hey, you're wearing a hat that says math, so I don't know what to tell you. So you just gotta do it. All right. Are you ready?
I have an itchy nose. Hang on, I have to. Okay, we're good now.
It's all right. You have a nose ring. I can imagine.
It does, yeah, it itches around the nose ring.
It's all good. I've never had one, but I can imagine. All right. First question of the lightning round. You ready?
Okay.
Excited?
You might have to cut this out, but okay, yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think it'll be fine. What's your favorite ice cream?
Mint chocolate chip.
Yeah, I love mint chocolate
chip. Did I win?
Yep, that's the whole thing. We're done. See you later. No, there's a few more. Name someone that you consider a role model.
Oh, role model. I've been so caught up in Andrew Yang everything for the last year of my life. So yeah, Andrew Yang.
It's fair. It's very fair, especially from someone that's actually.
I spent a lot of time with him. I get to see how he operates, and that's kind of how I do things. So yeah.
Jealous, just a little jealous. When I submitted all my stuff for my campaign, then I was like, hey, Humanity Forward, I'd like to go to Iowa to help. They're like, you're a candidate, so we can't talk to you at all. So bye. So I wanted to participate more, but I literally couldn't, which is fine. I was still kind of participating myself, but that's a story for another day. Next question. Would you rather have more time or more money?
More time. I've made my money in my life, and it wasn't worth what you think it's worth.
It's not fulfilling.
No.
Nope, I agree. What is a book you would recommend and why?
Give me a second.
You're good.
Okay. So my favorite book is A Man's Search for Meaning, Viktor Frankl. Before I read that book, I was very hardcore atheist.
Okay.
And I'm an atheist still, but it checked me. Because something that they learned in these concentration camps that people like me, the hardcore atheists, the ones that didn't really have something that they believed in, something bigger than themselves, they were the first to die.
Really?
Yes.
Like they just didn't have any reason to live.
They gave up.
Interesting.
Yeah. So it was probably one of the most profound things I'd ever read for that reason, and that it made me look at, because I was a very proud atheist. I don't know why it's such a thing to be proud of now, because it's literally just a lack of a belief in a God. But I was one of those ones that had to tell people about it, and whatever. And that book really checked me. It taught me that you do need something in life to carry you through. Like, hopefully, I will never see anything, and no one that I know will ever see anything like the Holocaust.
Right.
But it was just a very, very powerful book. Have you ever read it?
I haven't. I need to now
Yeah.
though.
It's very powerful. So,
Yeah, because I was raised very, very strict Mormon.
oh wow.
So I feel like your experience was similar. I don't know. I'm just not I understand what you're saying when you were very strong atheist.
Mhm.
Just because I'm guessing you chose to go just the complete opposite way from um some of the I don't know. I
I
was
was,
raised
I
in
was Catholic. I was raised Catholic.
I know you're raised Catholic, but super religious. I know they're not the same,
Yes, I was raised
but
super
just
religious.
very religious and everything you were saying about Catholic, how internalizing it and it's all your fault and
Yeah,
you're just never be enough and all that stuff.
I went 180 from that. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So I identify with that. So I will definitely need to read that.
Yeah, it's not a checkmate atheist thing. That's not what I'm trying to say. Because like
No,
I
no,
said,
I know.
I'm still like, I'm agnostic or whatever, and I still don't have like a belief in a God. But it's a
gives you
very
perspective, right?
yeah, it gives you perspective. Yeah,
Yeah, I've heard of the book. I just haven't read it, so
very good.
I'll do that. Who is someone you would nominate to come on the podcast?
Have you talked to James Treacle? Are you familiar with him?
I have seen him on Twitter, but I have not spoken to him. So
I consider him like the messaging king of the Yang Gang.
really,
He has taken um I mean, just spend like 5 minutes on his Twitter. He knows how to take any point and make it like palatable, make it make sense, expand on it. Like I really, and I don't know if you've seen any of like the volunteer ads he's done. Like he did our veterans ad. He's done a bunch of them. He's just like is really brilliant.
really.
Yeah, he's a total asset to the Yang Gang. So if you can talk to him, yeah, I
I
think you
will
should.
work on that. Yes, I know. I've seen him. I've seen a lot of his stuff. And I follow him.
Very smart guy.
Yeah, I haven't interacted with him personally, not yet. But
Mm.
yeah, I will definitely look into that. So you got through all the lightning round questions pretty well.
Thank
Very
you.
well, not just pretty well, very well for not having a heads up on it, especially. So
That wasn't in the document you sent me that I
it
didn't.
was in the document. You just didn't look at it. It's all good. So if you're not following Heidi yet, she is at Yang Vets on Twitter. She has a YouTube that we don't know the name of, so you might find her on Twitter eventually, or on YouTube eventually. If you're lucky, we'll do it like a scavenger hunt. Whoever can find her on YouTube wins. And anything else you want to add before we let you go?
Just keep the hope alive, Yang Gang. We got the band back together. We are, we are doing this, and we need you guys, and I absolutely love you. So, and thank you, James,
Yay!
for having me.
Yeah, of course. Thank you for coming on. Thank you for everything you do. And everybody loves hearing from you. And it doesn't matter the quality of the video or anything. So don't judge yourself on that.
Thank
Um,
you.
so, yeah, you just keep doing what you're doing. We'll support you however we can. And again, thank you for coming on. And we will talk to everybody soon.
Awesome. All right. See you later.
All right.